Welcome to the Owner to Owner podcast. I'm Michael Kerr, your host, and I'm also the founder of Kerr Capital, where for 22 years now I've worked alongside business owners. Owner to Owner is a business podcast to empower the owners of Australia's small and medium enterprises. Forget the slick stories of tech titans and unicorns. At Owner to Owner we get raw and we get real. Every Owner to Owner episode is a personal conversation with another business owner just like you. We explore the everyday struggles they face and the different pathways they tread to success. Practical advice and plenty of one percenters for better returns, less stress and more enjoyment. You'll find grit, laughs, maybe a few tears and some hard-won lessons only available from others who've been where you are, whatever your stage of ownership. Every owner has a compelling story to share, so join us to listen and to learn. Peta Fielding joins me today, co-founder of Burleigh Brewing. Burleigh, as I think you call it, Peter, is about to turn 20. Congrats on that. I read in a recent LinkedIn post that one of your very early KPIs was hunting around in bins for empty bottles of Burleigh beer in other bins that weren't yours. And then I contrasted that with a stated public KPI that you want to see your beer served in Queensland stadium. So that's in one respect, a real scaling of KPIs, but I suspect that for you and the co-founder, they're equally as important and kind of all in a day's work trying to build an independent Australian business in a market dominated by global behemoths. So I'm looking forward to getting your thoughts on that through our discussion today. But a big welcome in. You came back from Hawaii. You chose to build an independent brewery in Burleigh. What was your driver? The fight, has it changed over the 20 years or is it still the same battle to build an independent business?
I think to answer the last one first, it's probably same but different, but we can explore that. But to get into the kind of the beginnings of and that move back, I don't know, maybe I'll go back a step further. But I found myself in Hawaii doing an MBA. I initially did law. I always wanted to create something. I wanted to start a business, but I didn't know what I wanted it to be. And did law, figuring that couldn't hurt whatever journey I was going to go on, and practiced law for a few years down in Melbourne, actually. But I couldn't suppress the bug to want to go and do something. So the next step, or a step, because I didn't know really what I wanted to do, was to go off and do this MBA, and had an opportunity to do it in Hawaii, which in itself was quite cool. While over there, I met Brennan, who, as passionate as I was about building a business, he was passionate about brewing. It's the only career he's ever had. It's the only career he ever wanted. It was just, and I don't even know where that bug came from, but we met obviously and fell in love, which made business discussions much easier. But it kind of was just this obvious thing really in our lives that we wanted to build something cool in brewing together. Opportunity to do that was in fact in Hawaii, where Brennan was working for a brewery over there that struck some trouble due to its parent company on the mainland and went into Chapter 11 bankruptcy. And he came home from work one day looking quite forlorn, and I said, well, what's wrong? And he said, it's gone into Chapter 11. It was kind of very unexpected. And all I knew about Chapter 11 was kind of TV shows and general media. And I thought when things go into Chapter 11, someone else buys them for really cheap. And so I started jumping around saying, great, this is great, let's buy it, which we'd been married about 5 minutes. We had no money, but we knew we wanted to do something together. Anyway, long story short, we managed to put together a small group of people and we did actually buy that thing out of
Chapter 11.
And
wow.
And it was much more. It was a reasonable size brewery, a venue-based brewery, quite different from the production brewery we have now. But we worked really hard in that for a couple of years and really learned a lot about running a business together, what we liked in business partners, what we didn't like in business partners, the values that we would prefer to have in a business, just lots of things in a short time. And we knew we wanted to come home, my home, to Queensland and the Gold Coast and actually build something in Queensland because
How did you
nothing.
come to that decision when Brennan was a native Hawaiian?
Yeah, so
That was a
well,
boardroom decision,
he's
or
from Hawaii, but he's not native Hawaiian blooded, but he is from Hawaii. We had obviously, I think by that time, I'd done the MBA in Hawaii. We subsequently got married. I ended up being there for 6 years. Our children were born there, so we had that was the start of our married life over there. But during that time, we obviously came back to Australia a lot. And Burleigh was about the only place I think that you could truly look to move a Hawaiian from Hawaii to something else. He fell in love with Burleigh, which obviously made me happy being, home for me. And we've been living.
what was it that was most like Hawaii? In Was it the
Oh, look,
vibe of the thing, or was it palm trees or water?
I think an overall vibe. I mean, it's certainly not, the same as Hawaii, but I just remember him standing in the middle of Burleigh Beach and kind of looking out at the surf and taking a big breath and saying, "Yeah, I could live here." You can just, it got into his soul. And it is, I would say, Hawaii and Queensland are very much more alike than us and American mainland. It's a much easier, I guess, adjustment. But we were obviously traveling home a lot during that time. We had been living in the States through a real independent and craft beer kind of revolution, if you like. It had been Brennan's life, obviously. He'd worked in a number of breweries by then. And every time we came back to Queensland, there was nothing. Every pub you went to had the same beer. Every bottle shop you went to had the same beer. At the time, there was a lot happening in wine. Wine was having a real moment. Wine did a great job of kind of generating awareness and interest and becoming something in Australia. And there was just nothing in beer. And we genuinely, I'm not lying when I say we felt like we had to come home and save Queensland and just give Queensland a choice. Not everybody wanted to switch, obviously, to a different beer or whatever, but there just wasn't a choice, even if you wanted to. And so that kind of, again, it was just a really strong thing that we held and believed in. And after running the brewery in Hawaii for 2 years, we thought, now it's time. We had a couple of small children in tow by then. And the dollar was at 50 cents, and we sold our share in the brewery and managed to double our little nest egg and come home and really start planning the details for what became Burleigh Brewing.
Yeah. So it wasn't a marriage at a personal level, but also a marriage of intentions and aspirations. So Brennan to brew and you to fresh out of an MBA, full of beans, and want to do something. Was that a bit of a rebellion against what the pathway might have been if you had taken a traditional MBA pathway of going into corporate or something
Yeah,
like that?
I had this, I think I had a fabulous upbringing, kind of the best of both worlds, in the sense that Mum and Dad really supported us, well, they certainly held us to high standards in terms of working hard, doing the best we could at school and encouraging us to go to university and so on. But against the backdrop of that wasn't the be all and end all, and that there was very much an entrepreneurial spirit, I think, in the family that from my dad in particular, of wanting us to just go out and give something a crack. And so there was certainly no expectation that I would go into this stable career and stay in it. I definitely didn't want to. Don't get me wrong, I loved studying law and I loved the time that I spent practicing law. It was about 4 years in the end, but I just knew it wasn't my forever thing. And the building that I worked in was the Stock Exchange building in Main Street in the city.
In Melbourne, in Collins Street.
Collins Street. And it had the rounding door like that. And one morning I just walked in and I just walked straight back out again. And I can't.
Like a roundabout. You go back around.
Every day, for the rest of my career. Nothing to do with the job, nothing to do with the place I worked. I loved it, but it just wasn't what was in me for what I wanted to do. I just really wanted to be able to create something.
Yeah. And that parental permission or encouragement to go and have a crack is a great thing. You want the best for your kids, and so all the things that come with a good job, but yeah, having a crack is long run will pay off in different ways and unexpected ways. So yeah, good on them, your parents.
to go and do it. Yeah.
Yeah. So right now, did you want to give a quick overview of Burleigh Brewing, and then I want to talk to you about the industry that you're in, and competing with giant multinationals.
Yeah. So when we first came back, we kind of had this picture that we'd probably build something somewhat similar to what we'd done in Hawaii. We dived into really researching the market a bit here and kind of seeing what was going on and putting together a business plan. And what we quickly realized was if we went in at that scale, we really probably wouldn't be doing enough to make a difference and have an impact on the beer market in Queensland and Australia ultimately. So we paused for a minute and then really upsized our business plan, which there's something to be said about being a little, young and a bit naive and not having too much at stake. I mean, I say that, but we had 2 small children and our first ever mortgage. So, and we were both leaving jobs to jump into it. So you could say we
There's
had
a fair
something,
bit on the line. Yeah.
but we also had real belief and commitment and passion in it. So we upsized it to a genuine production brewery. The first site that we started in was, I think, about 600 square meters in a new industrial building in Burleigh, which was significantly bigger than what we had initially planned. And I remember the moment in time when I had resigned from my job. We're just going to really give this 1,000% attention for a few months and see if we can actually do it. And then once we did that, we had our funding. We shared our business plan with a small group of shareholders and so we have Brennan and I the majority, but we have a small group of external shareholders who've been with us the whole time. We took our business plan to the bank, who it was kind of wild that they lent money for something like that, a complete unknown, against the business plan and really nothing else. And suddenly we had the site, we had the money, we were kind of ready to go. And it was just kind of, well, here we go. It made it, there was no choice to turn around then. And then from that that time forward, it's just been, go, go, go.
Yeah. So a supportive bank off the back of supportive investors. How did you? Were they friends or colleagues, or you went and pitched?
Yeah, look, honestly, I can't remember even how we met some of them, but it was through local business people. Effectively, we kind of started the conversation with someone who, potentially said, "Oh, it's not for me, but you should meet XYZ," and very quickly we just had these, introductions to a great small group of people.
And
Yeah, look back now,
still with you today.
they are. Yeah, yeah,
And are
very.
they a pool of a group of investors that are active or more backroom, or how do they get involved
Yeah,
in the government?
very much there for advice if I want it,
Yeah.
but really, have given full faith in Brennan and I running, getting it going, building it and running it. And, in fairness, we talked a little bit earlier about where to from here and so on. That's where, and we can get into that later, but it's not a just us decision about the future.
Yeah.
Obviously, there's other
Yeah.
people that are conscious of,
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, look, it's I think being open and taking the advice of people like that is a good thing if you pick those people well. Like they're, for to be in for 20 years or thereabouts says a lot about their commitment and if if they've got relevant experience to draw on, because you don't have it all yourself when you start,
that's
like,
right. Absolutely right.
and you got to be open to that. And that kind of goes to the core of how you now competing as an independent business. But actually, before that, the business today, like how many square meters, how many staff, what's the business model broadly?
Yeah, and it's the model has evolved a little bit, and I guess as you can imagine, in 20 years, and as things have changed, markets change, our needs have changed, and so on. There's been a few different shapes to it, but we about 9 years in, we outgrew where we had started, and in fact, where we started with that 600 square meters, it was in this U-shaped building that was made up of 12 units because we hadn't been able to find a big enough building kind of under one roof to accommodate what we wanted to do. So started off in 4 of those units. We had to knock holes in walls and so on to kind of convert it into one. The wonderful benefit of being in a place like that, which was 11 of the 12 units, which meant 11 front doors and 11 toilets, which was sick of. So we started looking for somewhere else where we could literally start again from scratch and rebuild it for, the next era.
And cut down on your fuel costs from shipping from unit 1 to unit 11
Right.
or whatever.
Put my head in one door and go, "Are you in here?" And it was not efficient, nor particularly safe, to be honest. But we made it safe, but it was a bit of an exercise to do that with things going everywhere. So that was about 9 years in, and so we set about looking for another site, and we ended up finding one literally 200 meters down the road on the same street, and it's a big 2,000 square meter standalone building. It wasn't in particularly great shape, but we saw the potential in it.
To buy it or to lease it?
No, it wasn't available for sale at the time, but to occupy it again, we've wonderful landlords who we have extreme security of tenure there. But so we literally gutted the whole thing, pulled up the slab, redid it from fully in, all the way inside out. And we had the luxury then of laying out the brewery in a way to serve where we were at that point in time, as opposed to what we were imagining when we started, in a very efficient, very production friendly way. And so that was 2015 when we made the move down the road. We've had, in terms of kind of iterations of the business during that time, we've had periods where we've done our own warehousing. So we've had additional buildings in the same precinct that have served as either raw materials or finished goods warehouses. Gone back and forth a little bit on that. Sometimes at the moment we've gone back the other way, but we don't want to be a logistics and a warehousing company as well. So we're using external
3PL.
3PLs and so on, yes. So at the moment, it's just currently the main production facility. We do all brewing and packaging in there. Our offices are there, and it's also, we have a venue attached to it as well, which operates Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and you can literally, sit in the shadow of the tanks.
Yeah. Industrial voyeurism where you can see everything. It's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, people find it, quite fascinating. But just on the scale thing, very soon after we launched, a Queensland journalist wrote an article in the Courier Mail. We do know him, and he's actually written some wonderful things over the years, but this was the first time we'd encountered it. And I'll always remember there was a line in his article about the brewery opening, kind of to the effect of, what are they thinking opening in the shadows of Australia's largest brewer up the road in Yatala, and something like they won't be able to brew as much as what the big guys spill on the floor. Brew as much in a year as what the big guys spill on the floor in a day. Now we're really motivated.
Yeah. Was that designed to do that? It's quite poetic, isn't it? That
I think he's an entertaining guy. I think
they
it's
spill.
just a cool observation.
Yeah. And has he written more stories since? And
He's not so much in the beer journalism game now, but certainly over the years he was. He did.
Yeah. So you got to that place in 2015 or 16, and is that the same place you're at now?
It is, yes.
Yeah.
And the way we've designed it to be able to increase capacity in place within the walls of that building. It's quite unique how the production equipment has been planned and designed. That's got Brennan's hand all over it. And we have since that time been continuing to expand our capacity within that site.
And so you built ahead of the curve in the sense of you had floor space or mezzanine space or whatever it is to build into.
Yeah, primarily tank space, and each time we add a tank, we have to peel the roof off, and the crane has to drop it in from above. It's quite a big exercise.
Yeah.
It was all very, very much planned out, from the beginning when we moved in there, how it was all going to.
Yeah. Okay. Where are you now in capacity? Are you? I do want to come later to where to with the business, but is it still, you still got some left, or is it so good?
Yeah, no, we definitely have been I mean, that's really, in terms of building a business for the longer term, that has been a big part of making sure that the business is running in a way where we can continue to invest back into it and be building it so that it does have that long-term future. And yeah, particularly during COVID and on the back end of COVID, we continued to invest in that expansion of capacity. So we're sitting pretty for a little while now.
And is the hospitality part, the retail part, is that a large part of the overall business, or as compared to canning and
Yeah,
and
not in revenue terms. It's a huge part of the business in terms of brand and trial and awareness, and whether that's the end consumer coming and getting a chance to kind of get to know the brand more directly, meet the people, have a tour through the brewery, actually get to understand what's different about what we do and why we do it and so on. That's a big part, but it's also a fabulous place for us to be able to bring bottle shop managers, venue owners and so on, for them to really understand about, who.
yeah, and you've been in that same area for 20 years now. Like, how far was it? Was only the site you're at was from the 11 little units was
Yeah, literally a
200
couple of
meters.
hundred meters down the
Yeah,
road.
yeah. It's a statement itself. It's I still love to see buildings where the name might have been a news agency or a dairy or a whatever newspaper, is bricked in, or
Yeah,
is that they were built at the business and the building were built at the same time. Business was supported by the building, and the building was there for the business. And some of these businesses lasted a hell of a long time. So
absolutely. Yeah. Doesn't seem to be these days that businesses are, I don't know, hopefully there's still a few long-term businesses out there, but it doesn't seem the common structure anymore.
no, I think some businesses aren't visible because they're online.
Mm.
And some of the roll-ups of bakeries and pubs and kind of happened a fair while back. But you'd like to think that there's going to be some heritage businesses. I mean, you're at 20 years and eyeing off 40, 50, 60, whatever, and they're to be celebrated. One of my favourite things, I bring it up in the podcast quite a bit, is we're in Portugal and they have an accreditation called Los Comos Historias, and it's I think it was in Porto, buildings, local council accreditation for businesses operating in the same place as the same business, I think under the same ownership for more than 100 years. And they get to put a cast iron plaque at the front. And that's pretty cool, isn't it? Like, and that they celebrate 100 years. And I walk around Melbourne and there are businesses that have Quist Coffee, I think, is like 90 years or something. And there are and K Craddock's antiquarian bookshop, and yeah, they're as much as we like, startups, we like the ones that can post some decades.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
and more more celebration needed of those.
Yeah, that's right. Well, that's something we certainly admire about Coopers. And, if we can be that long-standing independent brewer of Queensland,
Yeah,
that
yeah,
that's
they've had some battles, haven't they, in terms of keeping it
absolutely.
independent. What's their are they 180 years, 100 years? I'm kind of
Well, yeah, I'd be guessing too. I don't know if it's 100 yet, but it's a lot. I don't.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It's right up there. Yeah. Yeah. So on the retail and as a retail business, it's a meeting place. It's that's can be a wonderful part of a business to have locals and
Mm.
somewhere to gather and meet. And
Yeah, and it's a way for us to bring the community in. We run different events there. It's just a great asset to be able to do all kinds of things. Whether it's, we've got a big outdoor cinema screen on one of the big concrete walls, and we do film premieres, or bring in local footy clubs for their end of season whatevers, and Yeah, we've had all
Yeah.
kinds of things there,
Yeah.
and it's a great space for it. It's a really unique space, and again, just beer has this. I mean, it's got thousands of years of history, right? It's not just modern made up fancy alcoholic drink. It has a real, certainly for those of us who are in the industry and care for it for what it is rather than, as I say, just a random alcoholic drink. It has a real reverence and heritage about it in general. And a big part of that, particularly for example, in Germany, every town has its own brewery. And the brewery is a part of the town and the heart of the town. And we used to joke that Gold Coast is fabulous. It's got so many wonderful qualities. It's where I absolutely wanted to come back to. But to be a real city, it needs a brewery and a football team. And it didn't have either when we started. And we started in 2006 and the Titans pretty much were the year after. So, we say, well, now we can be a real city. And the venue at the brewery, I think, is just, a little piece of that is where for people to be able to come and just be part of this thing that hopefully they feel like is theirs.
Yeah. For a place to be not just sustainable, but interesting and vibrant to live in, I often think about what are the cultural underpinnings of a successful, much loved place to live. And pubs, the smaller the town, I do a lot of work in regional areas. The smaller the town, the more important the local pub is. And it's not the only, it could be the sporting club, it could be
Yes. Yeah.
the neighbourhood house, it could be a bookshop or a library, but there are only, in some of these towns there might be 50 businesses, and
Yeah.
and you got to get milk and you got to get diesel, but you got to have somewhere to go. And
That's right. Places to come together and connect, and and beer historically has often been part of those types of occasions. Not that everything has to be around alcohol, but it just is. That's been its part.
it is, yeah. It's a facilitator of company and conversation. Reflecting on 20 years, what do you think is the biggest decision you made that has set you up for where you are today and the success you've enjoyed so far? Is there anything like one that comes to mind? You go, that was a brilliant call.
Gosh, I don't know if we don't, the days just are always so full and busy, and you're chasing the next thing and solving the next problem that I don't know that you have a chance to sit back and go, oh God, that was a really good decision. And if it was probably a lucky one. It's probably just a whole. It's the sum of all the small decisions. I think more than big one, and probably more important to that is it's the philosophy and the approach that underpins all those small decisions. And look, there's probably a few things that are relevant to that, and one big one being that we always went into it building for the long term. We wanted to build a business that provided genuine career growth opportunities for people on the Gold Coast, which may be hard to kind of think about, but 20 years ago, and I went to university on the Gold Coast, and there was a kind of a sense that, you come out with a great university degree, but you kind of have to go away to start your career or to build your career. Whereas I always felt like it would be wonderful if families didn't almost have to, split apart for children to leave for that to happen. And it's not like we're employing everybody on the Gold Coast, but there was a small part of me that felt like that was something we could really do is offer genuine, career roles. So that and that kind of is part of I think the building for the future and wanting to reinvest in the business and build something strong that was strong for the city and that venues could rely upon and building, so not knowing, not wanting to just necessarily build something for exit and therefore building it in a way that it was a great business, whether we chose to exit it, exit it,
Yeah.
whatever. And so I think it's more been that philosophy and that approach has had an impact on all those little decisions as opposed to, one big thing.
Yeah.
Maybe I could say my best decision was finding and marrying Brennan because that's her all.
That's a good one. On your Brennan. Yeah.
Hi there, just a short interruption and a message from Kerr Capital. Kerr Capital specialise in advising business owners who want to get sale ready or, as is increasingly common, get approached out of the blue by a potential buyer. If this is you, I know there'll be plenty of big questions and a lot of uncertainty. We're expert at supporting owners in making significant personal and business decisions and then helping create a really strong plan of action. If you want to find out more, contact us at the Kerr Capital website, and then we can book a 45-minute no obligation discovery call. Now let's head back to the podcast.
Well, I think, from what you've told me already, you grew up in or got to 11 units, and then going, even at start, you went big. You had funders and the bank support. So you went big, and then you went and you've built ahead of the curve with that, where you are now. And that takes a lot of courage, but it also doesn't sound like you've lost any I'm sure there are days, but you still sound really enthused and excited about your business. And you obviously, as you were talking about that, I'm thinking, when you love a place so much, you want to build so that the place remains vibrant, and you want to hang out there in your own, your own place, and you want other people to want to hang out there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that speaking of people, that I think that's the other thing, with that kind of approach to wanting to build for the longer term and so on. I think that also informs the decisions we make about how we build the team, what it's like to be part of the team, what we can do to impact culture and so on as well. So the fact that it still feels really good to be in there among our people also makes it, still wonderful to go to work.
Yeah, to be able to say that's that's a big tick, isn't it? When you care about people, it adds some responsibility, doesn't it, and some weight.
Definitely, it's a weight to carry. Definitely,
Yeah.
That's probably been the biggest burden,
Right.
but also
Responsibility, or would that be the thing that keeps you awake most at night? Like, how many staff across the operation, full time and casuals? Would you?
It has swelled and contract during COVID. Probably like a lot of businesses, we were throwing people at things, but then when things settled down, we were able to kind of go, okay, let's get some efficiencies back here. But among kind of the whole production, sales, and everything, with about 50 people is kind of the scale that we're running at pretty well. And as I say, we've gotten smarter at efficiencies and so on within that. So I don't necessarily see, well, for me, a goal or a KPI or a measure of growing the number of people just for the heck of it is not really a thing. Sustainable and really rewarding for the people in it. And so trying to grow their roles. We had a big AI is obviously, big thing at the moment. And we had one of our whole of company kind of get-togethers. We talked about AI, and because the media all around, it's coming for your jobs and blah blah blah. And I made it clear that my commitment to them, if they were willing to jump on board in return, is that AI is not, from my perspective, AI is not coming from their jobs, but potentially someone who knows how to use AI well in their role is. And so let's all just get around it and learn it together and make each of our jobs more valuable to the business. And so that's kind of the path that we're on now.
Yeah, good. It seems like a pretty sensible way to approach it. It's not going away.
No, some days I think it's amazing, and some days I think it's just creating work.
Yeah, I think there's a certain element of learning about it, learning how to use it effectively, and you can't just go from, as much as there's a gazillion YouTube things that'll tell you can nail it in 12 minutes and whatever. You got to trial and error. It's part of everything. I wanted just to swing to, you referenced a couple of times the long term. You don't have to breach any confidentialities here, but have you been approached over the years to, by bigger acquirers? Have there been moments where you think you've been tested as to your long-term, commitment to the business?
Tested in the sense of, we really had the choice of, do we go this way, this way? There's certainly been, I'll say, loose approaches and conversations from various directions. We haven't been at a table of serious discussion. to this point. I guess we haven't invited that, and no one's putting a hard offer on the table as such that really pushed that. But there's certainly been approaches and conversations. And I think, 20 years in, now we've got hindsight, which we didn't have, and even 10 years ago, the hindsight was all just the hard work of building kind of thing. It's kind of getting to a point now where we can kind of go, okay, what does all this look like? And I think in hindsight, when some approaches came in, we just, I think, I don't know. I imagine to sell or partly sell or in any way transition a business, whatever that looks like, it has to be the right time for all the people involved, those coming in, those leaving, everything. And there was no point in time during the last 20 years where I think emotionally or psychologically or whatever, mentally, that we were even ready to engage in those conversations.
Yeah.
And so, but yeah, 20 years in, you start to go, I want to live forever and do this forever, but that's not real. So now we just really are focused on making sure it's a great business with great options and opportunities, still caring about the things that we care about, and that is the product, and that is the people, and that is the community that we serve. And then whatever future we can create for the business from that, that's what we'll be looking toward. But I don't know what that looks like.
Yeah. I mean, because remaining independent is hard, but I don't know. There's also that's an opportunity, and you've got to patch some followers and fans, tribe. But independent brewing has been going through a hell of a time the last 2-3 years, and dropping off like flies in certainly around Melbourne. But then there are notable successes, and I think you talked about Gage in Freo, which is somewhere came up somewhere and then Stomping Ground. I'd like to, if I had to take a punt, I reckon they're all kind of groups of founders or investors that are really there for an independent long-term business. But
yeah. Look, the market is unique in Australia, I would say. And it's just structurally, when you look at it, you do kind of shake your head and think, why would anyone try and take it on? But that structure is so embedded, there's no kind of way around it. People have, kind of say to us now, oh, wow, it must be so much harder because, when we started, there weren't any other really breweries in Queensland. There had been some small kind of venue-based ones to come and go, but and yet now there's however many. I think when we first started, there were maybe 30 production brewing sites around the country, including the big guys. And now, or certainly at its peak, if you include all the small ones, I think there was something like 800. So it's a huge change.
Right,
yeah. There's so much competition now; it must be so much harder. But when we first started, it was super hard because the thing at that point was, a lot of consumers didn't trust a beer that didn't come from a big global brewer because that's all they knew as beer. And, assumed that there was even one comment, oh, but it's made just down the road. How good can it be? Whereas beer is best made just down the road, So it was it was us against the beer brand perception as opposed to individual competitor brands.
Yeah, like organic fruit or vegetables that come out of the garden with a bit of a wonk in them or something.
Yes.
It's like, the rest of the stuff that's been in storage for 6 months.
I will defend our beer. We don't have wonks in our beer, but
yeah.
But no, that was it, and it was almost we came up with this rock star theory of beer branding development, and that was people seem to like movie stars and rock stars and so on from their hometown after they'd gone away and become famous. So we realized, well, the initial feel on the Gold Coast was they're not ready to embrace this wholeheartedly just yet. So we actually turned our sights on Brisbane in those early years. And that was kind of just far enough up the highway, maybe. I don't know what it was, but Brisbane really embraced us first. Yeah. And then it was, I would say, some years later, and of course there are exceptions here, I'm speaking generally, but some years later when it felt like the Gold Coast kind of went, oh yeah, they're from here. We love them
Yeah.
because we've got a bit of
Yeah.
momentum going elsewhere. It was a really, really interesting. But, just the structural model in Australia of the market where there's on both the supply side and the retail side, it's just dominated by such big players, whether it's the chain liquor store in the Coles and Woolies of the world, or the Asahi and Kirin, who are the primary producers of beer in Australia. It just means that so many decisions can be made through a very small number of meetings in boardrooms between a very small number of people, and that literally can decide what products go where in this country, and therefore what people have the option to choose. And that's the thing that
Yes.
we're people deserve a choice. Damn it,
Yeah.
is our thing.
Well, and they've also, I mean, the whole industry grew up pretty quickly, and so if you travelled anywhere, you were exposed to it because they were just popping up all these fun beers and interesting in places. So yeah, the whole market matured now as a challenge. But
I think we were. No, I have to, don't hold me to exactly, but I would say 10 years before another brewer opened on the Gold Coast after us, and the next
yeah,
it was Lonely for a long time. I think the next one was Bolter. And then after that, there was kind of a bit of a quick succession. I think outside looking in, the industry looked hot. It had started attracting a lot of noise and attention. We've always, and some of those that have come in have been very successful and have really added to the industry in a good way. I think because we came in as brewers, and as it genuinely has always been about the beer and the product and making a great product that can become people's beer. We're not there for a gimmick or a trend or a moment in time. We genuinely want to be.
yeah, you're honouring traditions is that what kept coming up as I looked at some of the videos of Brennan and a Czech brewer.
Yes. Yeah.
I think he was a brewer from birth or something.
Yeah. So that's always been kind of first and foremost, and we literally, want to be the beer that people choose as their beer, not as I'll give this try as a random thing, or as a, just as a fun one-off. So even the way we brew, the types of beer we brew, all are designed to be just a great beer choice.
Yeah, excellent. For you personally, how's your role changed over the 20 years?
Sure. I actually had this kind of silly idea when we first were building it, that, I'll build the business plan, get the funding, get it all set up, get build basically Brennan's dream place to work, and then I'll be able to step back and kind of have
A
this
giant man cave of epic proportions with lots of stainless steel.
Yeah. But genuinely, I just knew that he was so damn good at what he did, and people deserve to be able to, have a chance at experiencing and getting at it. There really was a part of me that I felt like I was building it for him as much as anything else, or we were building it. But so I had this kind of little fantasy, I think, that I'd be able to then step back into this part-time kind of, because our kids, in 2006, our kids were 6 and 5. So it was busy mum time as well, and dad time. So we were just all sucked in, the whole family.
No.
Yeah, I thought I'd be able to step back a little bit, but I don't know, maybe through my own fault. I enjoyed it too much, but also really got swept up in what we were doing. And so there's been nothing part-time about my role anyway through the whole thing. All in. But we definitely had to develop, and I in particular had to develop, and still am developing as a leader and a developer of people. And I certainly didn't. I like to think I'm better at it now than what I was then, but I certainly didn't have it all going on then, and made some mistakes in the early days, but learnt from them. And I think that's, I guess the role becomes, in a sense, bigger as the business gets bigger. The role changes as well. It's like every time we stepped into a new year, it was like, well, now I'm running a business that's bigger than I've ever run before. What do I have to learn now? And it was probably about, maybe it was when we moved Brewery in 2015 was when we started to be able to add what I would call a senior leadership team. And so that then changed again from kind of managing doers, if you like, to then having a team for me to engage with on that strategic level and have them managing the doers. I'm still learning.
Yeah.
We're all learning a bit together, but gosh, it's true what they say when you can start to employ people who know more than you do on, really specialist areas, and they can bring that to the table, and that's where it can get really fun.
At some point, you start thinking about a leadership team. Was the MBA helpful, or was it was more deep-seated learning because you just had to?
Look, there's things I don't think I would say that, there was a particular class or topic from the MBA that and would I've had to have done it to do this?
Yeah.
No disrespect to the MBA program at all, but for me, I think it was more a circuit breaker, and it was the thing that got me out of that career path.
Yeah.
To this one.
And seeded the idea for a business, which
That's
sort of
right. And
tick on
probably
that.
gave me a bit of confidence. And honestly, maybe it gave the bank a bit of confidence written on the business plan
Yeah.
that,
Yeah.
that I'd done that. So I don't regret it at all. But I'd say more the learnings and education have been in the doing and into
Yeah.
speaking to
Yeah.
people who've done it.
Yeah. Are your kids, have they progressed to work in the business in any?
That would make our succession planning easier, wouldn't it? And look, that both of them would be amazing, but maybe we did too good a job of parenting. They've both grown up with strong passions in their own, areas, and they're doing fabulously well in their own right. Our son is the young entrepreneur. In fact, it's probably a little bit too much like his mother. He studied law and then he lasted about 2 weeks in a law firm and went, I don't want to work inside. I want to go build something for myself. So he's running his own business now that he's building in kind of building services space, and doing wonderfully well. And our daughter is a competitive professional dressage rider. And she and her fiance are also just starting a business. They live down in the Southern Highlands, equestrian world down there. But yeah, they're just starting a business as well. So, and they've both worked in the business, which has been great. But I am strongly of the view that if you're going to do something like this, you have to be passionate about it. Not necessarily, you don't have to love necessarily drinking beer, but you have to be passionate about building a brewing business or running a brewing business or whatever business. And the last thing I would want to do is force them, not that we can force them, but ask them to or guilt them into carrying on our passion and our dream when it's, it's theirs.
They've got their own.
That's it. Yeah. Which I'm very proud of them for that.
All right. So thinking forward, and so it should be, it sounds like they're off and running, and the kernel is that they're doing things that your son tested law 2 weeks out of here, and it was the right decision. So,
absolutely. And look, I think they've had a business degree by osmosis, just the conversations around the dinner table. That's what happens when you grow up in a family running a small business. They learn so much.
Yeah, you can't get away from it. It's both of you, knee deep in it, and them in it. Next 20 years, what's the plan? What are your thoughts at this stage? You're just about to celebrate 20 years, so that's an incredible achievement. But have you had time to think about?
We're always thinking about the next 20, I guess, and always building for that. There's a lot more to do in independent beer in Australia. The last few years have been interesting, but then there's just been a variety of forces, and I don't think it's anything unique, honestly, some of it might be unique to the brewing industry, but I think that the country in general, economically and regulation and so on, I think is touching and impacting all kinds of industries, to be honest, that are making things difficult in some ways. But when we look at the brewing industry in particular, that I think because of what's been happening economically, it's made and kind of referring back to the structure that I spoke about before, it's made the big players fight really hard and use their power that they have, and I guess they're free to use, but it has made being a smaller business and genuinely being able to compete on an equal footing. And I don't think that is unique just to brewing, but it certainly has.
I don't think it is either, and there a lot of consumers just go for the default or the easy or the convenient, and a price of that is that you continue to support giant multinationals and got really independent businesses. It's harder than ever, but it's more important than ever.
That everybody's trying to manage their own budgets, but I do believe so many decisions are made that potentially even inadvertently is just giving more and more power to concentrated areas. And yes, the flow on impact of that is that choice and availability is so restricted that the default is just to or the default behavior just continues to support that and I could go into so many things, but we'd go into so heaps of detail. You know, one of the things that has come in during our 20 years that didn't exist in Queensland prior was the container deposit scheme, which all for recycling and so on. But when you truly understand the industry and dive into how that operates and where in the chain the charge is levied, I guess, and who in the chain, so it's the manufacturers who have to pay it, and what that does in terms of adding margin through the chain and who actually ends up being able to take that margin for no extra work and make them stronger in the process and so on. It's all against, it just doesn't support the small players at the start of that chain. And it's more admin, more work, more load at the wrong end of the process.
Yeah. And the bigger organizations absorb that easily.
Much more easily.
And they've got the whole departments and they love it because it just makes it's another moat, part of the moat that is.
That's right. Yeah. And I don't know how we ever unwind or address that. I really don't, but
Well, compulsory small business service for pollies. But anyway, you carry on doing what you do because you're doing
that's
that.
Right. And you can't, you know, what we have, the one thing that has stayed the same over the whole 20 years is there's always something, whether it's a pandemic or whether it's a decision that, a government decision that either had an intended or an unintended consequence. There's just always stuff. There is always stuff. And that being able to kind of, or learning to, well, we can't control that. What can we do? And just keep finding a way through, I think is probably the natural or the most necessary skill of an entrepreneur or someone running a business, is just to keep finding a way.
Yeah. Celebrate the wins, but kind of like back of your mind, there's some other shit coming down the line.
I remember having that conversation with Brennan, I don't know, a few years in, and he said something like, all I did was put out fires today, or something to that effect. And I said, probably the only thing wrong with that is expecting it to be different. If we expect to not have to just put out fires all the time, we're going to hate life. If we just accept that's part of it, that's our job. And
and it's why to run a business like this, unless you've been you've worked in corporate. I had time working in a bank and different bucket, right? But it's nothing like the intensity of when everything's on the line, or you've got 40 people, 50 people to meet. You've got to make payroll, or you've got to keep shareholders and investors or the bank informed and up to date, and you have your bumps. So it takes a special breed. Would you still, knowing what you know, would you still start Burleigh Brewing today?
Absolutely. Yeah. And there'd be a few things I wish I had all the knowledge now back then when we started, put it that way. I'd probably do a few little things differently, but probably not a whole lot, but some things. Yeah. But no, absolutely. I'd do it in a heartbeat.
I do a lot of work with owners who are going to exit out of their business or move on and do something. And it's a huge untapped resource. The intellectual property, then, it's a fancy way of saying people who have been successful in a business for a long time have a lot to share with new owners or in roles as employees. I've had a few guests on the podcast who have been in corporate, into their own business and back to corporate, and have a really interesting approach to the way they do their roles. And I think an incredibly valuable asset for that organisation that's picked them up. There's a lot of embedded understanding and that could be passed on.
Absolutely. Gosh, if you got them all together, imagine what we could do. No, I totally agree. And I often joke with people who I know who are still in law, and I would make a way better lawyer now than what I could ever have done if I just stayed in law. I can guarantee that.
Yeah. Yeah, because a lot of what you do is a lot of legal agreements, yeah?
Well, and just knowing what really matters. I get a little bit frustrated sometimes with law. I'm just kind of like, oh, but that I don't know. It's just can be quite tedious when you're kind of actually going, no, let's get commercial about this. Thankfully, I now have a wonderful commercially thinking lawyer.
Yeah, but you as when you're on the clock by the hour or by the unit of 12 minutes or whatever,
Yeah,
it's, you've got time and someone's got budget to pay you to think about all this and come up with all of the options and I mean, I write a lot of MOUs and non-binding indicative offers, and I hope lawyers aren't listening in, but that it gets the parties closer together
yes,
and you get a deal on a page or two. And then it goes to the lawyers, but
that's
you've
right. Yeah.
passaged the whole thing, yeah,
Yeah,
because it
yeah,
wastes a lot
and
of time
I
and
don't wanna offend lawyers at all. And when I say be a much better lawyer, that's more a statement about me than them. I think going out
yeah,
of the
yeah,
city and being I didn't know what I was doing for most of those 4 years, but fake it till you make it.
yeah. Well, it's a thing. It's
Yeah.
yeah. All right. So look, a couple of final questions. I thoroughly enjoyed this conversation, Peter. Thank you. Roll forward to 20 years on from today. What would you like to see not changed about the business as it is today to preserve it in a good way?
Look, no matter who is running it or even owning it, whatever, I would love to know that the commitment to brewing the way we brew and therefore providing the product that we do put out and kind of the authenticity about it, that's still being honored, and that the business is still being run where the people are truly valued as a genuine part of what makes it special and what it is. I'd hope that those two things are still happening, and that it's being run in a way where it is decisions are made for the longer term and not for a quick sugar hit of growth that really isn't important to the business over the longer term.
Yeah, that's good. Like that.
Otherwise, they can hoard them.
Yeah, well, I'm imagining you're not going anywhere anyway, too far away from because you love where you are,
That's right. Yeah, yeah.
and yeah, so you want to go down there and wear your t-shirt and sit at
Yep.
the bar and have free beers for life if that
That's
was
going to be
yeah. Final question. We've talked about a few things related to this, but if you plucked out of Burleigh to go to Canberra and head up the Australian Small Business Department and briefed with sustaining the important independent small business economy, do you have any high priority things that you'd get the team to start working on as soon as you finish your coffee on that first Monday morning?
honestly, it's probably the big one that I did touch on it, and that just is the market structure and making sure that it is genuinely possible for businesses to not just start but genuinely scale in industry in Australia that currently in industries that are currently or and are being dominated more and more by big players, and it's kind of obvious me that is in our industry, and I'm probably oblivious to what it is in other industries, but I imagine even when it comes to I'm super
Most
impatient
industries are
by construction or
yeah, it's duopolies and oligopolies across the board, and if not, you know, locally owned big companies there, multinationally owned big companies, and it's across a lot of industries. So
yeah, it probably is.
yeah,
And as I say, I'm very familiar with it in our industry. Don't know the specifics in a lot of others, but and I think that there's still the at the moment there's still the spirit in Australia of anyone can have a go at starting anything, and I think genuinely that's still true. But where it comes unstuck in light of those kind of the dominance of monopolies and duopolies is you can get to a certain point, but then it becomes very difficult to scale beyond to something more meaningful that isn't also another global monopoly or
yeah,
a global player.
yeah. Here, power to Burleigh Brewing and you and Brendan to carry on, and the team. It's wonderful to hear that story. I appreciate you taking time out and sharing all of that with us. I look
Thank you.
forward to a beer up there sooner than later.
Yes, do come in when the bar is open.
Well. All right. If somebody did want to, another owner or founder wanted to have a chat, are you happy to, if I put your details in? Yeah.
Yeah.
Because somebody will be listening and going, well, I'm facing similar challenges, and hearing it from another business owner is the best funny as well. But yeah. All right. Well, we'll do that. Peter, thanks so much for your time. Really do appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
So thank you very much for listening. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Owner to Owner and got some helpful advice and maybe some more clarity on how to make your business work better for you. To subscribe or to listen back or to access any of the resources or information we talked about in this episode, head over to the website owner2ownerpodcast.com.au, or you can search up Owner to Owner Podcast on your favourite pod player. If this episode or the podcast generally is really helpful, I'd love it if you could leave me a like, a rating or a review, but even more than that, I'd love it if you could share it with another business owner. There's a new episode out every couple of weeks. I'll catch you then.